Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ripe Stories. In today's tale of malicious compliance, picture a new neighbor arriving and promptly acting as if she's a member of the HOA board. She starts schooling everyone on rules she completely made up. Then, imagine she has your car towed for an infraction that doesn't even exist, all while dismissing you as a nobody. The only issue is, she had no idea she was addressing the actual president of the HOA. Our first story from Reddit is titled, "New Homeowner Karen Calls Me a Nobody and Tows My Car, So I Engaged in Malicious Compliance." I've resided in my neighborhood for roughly 15 years, and for the past 8 of them, I have served as the president of our Homeowners Association. Before you start groaning about HOAs, allow me to clarify that I genuinely strive to be one of the reasonable ones. The color of your mailbox or the height of your grass being half an inch too long are not things I concern myself with. My main focus is on maintaining our shared areas, putting together community events, and ensuring residents aren't doing anything truly outrageous, such as parking an RV on their front lawn. Our HOA operates on a pretty relaxed basis. We have fundamental guidelines concerning property upkeep and parking, but I've always subscribed to a live and let live approach. If a neighbor decides to paint their front door purple, it honestly makes no difference to me. However, about 2 years ago, the house 3 doors down from mine was put on the market. It was a lovely, well-kept home that had belonged to an elderly couple who were relocating to be nearer to their children. The house sold rather quickly, which was beneficial for the neighborhood. What proved to be less beneficial was the person who purchased it. Our new neighbor, whom I'll refer to as Karen, because the name fits perfectly, moved in with her husband on a Saturday. I was outside washing my car when their moving truck arrived. Being a friendly person, I went over to introduce myself and offer them a warm welcome. "Hi there, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm your neighbor just down the street. If you happen to need anything or have questions about the area, please don't hesitate to ask me." Karen gave me a once-over, as if I were a door-to-door salesman, and offered a terse smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's nice. We're quite busy at the moment." Fair enough, moving can be a stressful experience. I didn't take it to heart and returned to washing my car. In the following weeks, I made a few more attempts to be neighborly, offering small waves when I saw her collecting her mail or pulling into the driveway. She never reciprocated. Her husband, on the other hand, seemed pleasant enough, always giving a quick nod. But Karen behaved as though the rest of us were simply invisible. Things took a strange turn about a month after she settled in. Karen had apparently been telling people that she was a member of the HOA board. Our board is composed of 5 individuals, myself as president, a vice president, a secretary, and 2 other board members. I know each person on the board personally, as we have monthly meetings. Karen was certainly not among them. The first I heard of it was from my neighbor 2 doors down. She approached me while I was checking my mail and asked if a new member had been added to the board. Karen mentioned she's on the board now, she said. I wasn't aware we were expanding. I was equally confused. We haven't added anyone. The board has been the same 5 people for the last 2 years. Huh, that's odd, she replied. Karen told me she was a board member while lecturing me about my recycling bin being visible from the street. This immediately raised a red flag for me. First, we have no rule against visible recycling bins. Second, why would anyone lie about serving on the HOA board? I made a mental note to stay alert for more information. Over the subsequent month, I heard at least 5 other accounts of Karen introducing herself as an HOA board member and attempting to enforce rules that were entirely fabricated. She even had the nerve to tell a family that their children were being too loud while playing in their own backyard in the middle of the afternoon. Each time, she asserted that she was acting on the authority of the HOA board, and each time, she was simply inventing things. I realized it was time to speak with her directly. I walked to her house one evening and knocked. Her husband answered, looking weary. "Hey, I'm from down the street. Is your wife available? I'd like to talk to her about some HOA matters." He called her to the door, and she came forward with that same insincere smile. I've been hearing from some of the neighbors that you've been telling people you're on the HOA board, I began, trying to maintain a friendly, non-confrontational tone. I just wanted to clear things up, as there might be some misunderstanding. The board hasn't added any new members. And who are you, exactly? She cut in. I'm the HOA president. I have been for the last 8 years. Har. You're the president? The man who washes his own car in his driveway. Yes, many people wash their own cars. Well, I find that extremely hard to believe. The president of an HOA should be a person of authority and presence, not some nobody performing manual labor on his front lawn. The way she emphasized nobody made it evident she considered it the ultimate insult. I was honestly too taken aback to reply right away. Her husband appeared mortified and attempted to interject, but she silenced him. I think it's time for you to leave. I have actual HOA business to handle. With that, she closed the door in my face. I walked back home, feeling a mixture of anger and amusement. For the time being, I chose to let it slide. I assumed she would eventually recognize her error, perhaps upon receiving the next neighborhood newsletter with my name listed as president, or when another resident corrected her. I wasn't prepared to escalate the situation over her rude and delusional behavior. That, however, was my mistake. 2 weeks later, I returned home from work to discover my car was gone. I had parked it on the street in front of Karen's house that morning because my driveway was being worked on by a contractor and needed to remain clear. The on-street parking in our neighborhood is public and perfectly legal. We have no HOA rules that restrict it, and it certainly isn't against any city ordinances. I went to Karen's house and knocked. She answered the door with a smug look on her face. Can I help you? Did you happen to see what happened to my car? I parked it in front of your house this morning. Oh, that. Yes, I saw. I had it towed. I stood there, truly speechless for a moment. You had my car towed from a public street? Absolutely. It was illegally parked. The HOA rules explicitly state that no vehicle can be parked on the street for more than 2 hours, and yours was there all day. We do not have that rule. I would know because I'm there. Oh, please, she interrupted again. You are not the HOA president. I am on the board, and I am familiar with the rules. Your car was taken to the impound lot on Morrison Street. You're welcome. She began to shut the door, but I held up my hand. Wait, are you being serious right now? You actually called a tow company and had my legally parked car removed. I did what any responsible board member would do. Perhaps next time, you'll adhere to the rules. Nobody. She slammed the door. I was legitimately furious. I took out my phone and called the towing company, and they confirmed they had my car. It would cost me $250 to retrieve it, with an additional daily storage fee if I didn't collect it within 24 hours. And for those of you who might be in the fortunate or unfortunate position of being an HOA president, what would you do? How would you handle this HOA Karen? Also, if you're enjoying these HOA stories, please remember to like the video and subscribe for daily content. Thank you. The tow truck driver informed me that they had received a call from a homeowner who reported an abandoned vehicle. I paid the fee, got my car back, and spent that evening seething. It turned out Karen had called a non-emergency police line and falsely claimed my car had been left there for over a week, a violation of city ordinance. The police authorized the tow based on her word without verifying the claim. I could have contested it and likely won, but that would have involved filing a dispute with the city, gathering evidence, and possibly a small claims court battle. For $250 and the associated hassle, I decided to handle it another way. Then, a better idea struck me. Since Karen was so eager to act like she was on the HOA board and enforce non-existent rules, I decided to give her exactly what she craved: strict, by-the-book HOA enforcement. But instead of her fake rules, we would use the real ones, every single one. I dedicated the next evening to meticulously reviewing our HOA bylaws. Afterward, I took a walk past Karen's house, observing it for the first time with an enforcement-focused mindset rather than a neighborly one. Our actual rules are quite minimal, but they do exist. As I read through them and inspected her property, I discovered that Karen's house was in violation of no fewer than 6 different regulations. The irony was almost too good to be true. First, her garbage bins were stored on the side of her house, visible from the street. Our bylaws stipulate that trash bins must be kept inside a garage or behind a fence when not out for collection. This rule was established years ago due to a problem with raccoons getting into exposed bins. Karen's bins were right there in plain sight. I documented it with photos from the sidewalk. Second, she had planted a front yard garden without seeking HOA approval. While I generally support gardening, the rule is in place for a good reason. Any changes to front yard landscaping require board approval to prevent damage to irrigation systems or interference with utility lines. We've had instances where people planted trees directly over main water or drainage lines. Karen had dug up a portion of her lawn for a flower bed without even inquiring about buried utilities. I checked our records. She had dug within 2 feet of a main irrigation line. She was lucky not to have hit it, but the rule was clear. Third, her house numbers were not reflective and were less than 4 inches tall. This is actually a city code that our HOA enforces for safety. Emergency services need to be able to identify houses quickly, especially at night. Karen had replaced the previous owner's numbers with tiny decorative ones that were about 2 inches tall and certainly not reflective. I took photos and later used a reference object to measure them, confirming they were 2.25 inches tall, a violation. Fourth, she had added a decorative iron fence around her front porch without architectural approval. All external modifications require board approval to maintain a consistent neighborhood appearance and prevent safety hazards or damage to property values. Karen's fence was actually quite nice, but she had installed it without permission. The previous owners didn't have it, meaning she added it after moving in, another clear violation. Fifth, she was operating some type of home business, judging by the constant flow of clients I had observed at odd hours. Home businesses must be registered with the HOA to ensure they don't create parking or noise problems. We typically don't prohibit them, but registration is necessary. I had seen at least a dozen different people arriving at her house with yoga mats, leading me to believe she was running a fitness or wellness coaching business. This would be fine if registered, but she had not registered anything. And sixth, the best one of all, she had painted her mailbox without approval. It sounds petty, but it was stated clearly in the bylaws. The standard mailbox colors in our neighborhood are black or dark green. Karen, however, had painted hers a vibrant coral pink. This rule exists because someone once tried to install a mailbox shaped like a giant fish, which caused a huge issue. Now, any changes to mailboxes require approval. Karen's pink mailbox was definitely a change, and she certainly hadn't received approval. I documented every violation with photos, measurements, and citations to the specific bylaw sections to make the case completely irrefutable. If Karen tried to claim I was making things up, I had solid evidence for every single infraction. I called an emergency board meeting and laid out my findings for the other members. They were all aware of Karen's recent behavior and gave their full support to my plan. We proceeded to draft official violation notices for each infraction, sending them via certified mail to prevent her from claiming she never received them. Each notice detailed the violation, cited the specific bylaw section and page number, and gave her 30 days to resolve the issue or face a fine of $50 per violation, per month. We also included instructions on how to apply for retroactive approval for her modifications, with a note that approval was not guaranteed and would be subject to a review process. The notices were professional and formal, precisely the kind of official communication Karen had been pretending to issue. I made sure each one was correctly formatted with my signature as president clearly visible at the bottom. 3 days after the certified mail was delivered, my phone began to ring. Karen had found my number in the neighborhood directory. She called me 4 times within an hour, each call more irate than the previous one, but I didn't answer. I let all the calls go to voicemail and saved each message. In them, she called me everything from a petty tyrant to some creative insults I won't repeat here. Each voicemail served as more evidence of her poor reaction. She appeared at my doorstep the same day she received the letters, absolutely livid. "What the hell is this?" she yelled, waving the stack of violation notices. "Those are violation notices for bylaw infractions," I stated calmly. "This is harassment. I'm on the board, and I never approved these ridiculous rules." "You are not on the board. As I've tried to tell you, I am the president. These are the actual rules that govern our neighborhood, and your property is in violation." "That's insane. Nobody follows these stupid rules." "Actually, most people do. But since you've been so focused on rule enforcement lately, I felt it was important to ensure that everyone, yourself included, is in compliance." Her face turned bright red. "You're only doing this because I had your car towed. I'm doing this because you are violating HOA rules, and as president, it's my duty to enforce them. You have been very outspoken about the importance of following HOA regulations. I'm just making sure we're all held to the same standard. This is petty and vindictive. Well, you wanted strict HOA enforcement, and now you have it." She sputtered for a moment before storming off my porch. Over the next 30 days, I meticulously documented everything. Karen made no effort to correct any of the violations, insisting they were all fabricated and that she would have me removed from the board. She failed to realize that removing a board member requires a homeowner vote, and given her treatment of everyone, she wasn't exactly well liked. Once the 30 days were up, the fines began. At $50 per violation per month, her total came to $300 a month. She refused to pay, claiming the fines were illegal. That's when I sent another certified letter explaining that unpaid HOA fines could lead to a lien being placed on her property. This is a standard and completely legal procedure. If she continued to refuse payment, we would follow the established process. The fines would accumulate, late fees would be added, and eventually, a lien would be placed that would need to be settled before she could sell or refinance her home. She attended the next HOA meeting, which was open to all residents, and tried to deliver a grand speech about my abuse of power and the board's corruption. The issue for her was that about 20 other neighbors also attended that meeting. We usually only get 5 or 6 people, but word of potential drama had spread. Every single person who came had a story about Karen harassing them, inventing fake rules, and pretending to be on the HOA board. It seemed Karen had made it her mission to antagonize as many neighbors as possible in her short time there. Each person's story began with, "She told me she was on the HOA board," or, "She said she was speaking for the HOA." The meeting turned into a group therapy session with Karen as the central topic. By the end, she was sitting silently in the back row with her arms crossed, looking as if she wished she could vanish. Her husband wasn't even with her this time. I suspect he'd had enough. The board voted unanimously to uphold the violations and the fines. We also decided to send a neighborhood-wide email clarifying the actual board members and reminding residents that official communications would only come from our designated HOA email address, which Karen, of course, did not have access to. The email went out the next day. It didn't mention Karen by name, but everyone understood who it was about. Karen paid the first month of fines but still refused to fix the violations. She paid the second month as well but included a letter with her payment, calling me a tyrant and threatening legal action. I filed it away with the rest of the documentation. By the third month, other problems began to surface. Neighbors started reporting every minor thing Karen did. If she put her trash out a day early, someone reported it. If her car's rear bumper extended 6 inches over the sidewalk, it was reported. Her dog barked. A noise complaint was filed. I didn't encourage this behavior, but I didn't stop it either. Every legitimate complaint that was submitted, I dutifully documented and handled according to HOA procedures. Most were minor and only resulted in warning letters, but it created a paper trail a mile long detailing Karen's inability to follow basic community etiquette. The turning point occurred about 2 months after the violations were issued. Karen attempted to organize a petition to have me removed as HOA president. She went from door to door with a clipboard, asking people for their signatures. Out of the 87 homes in our neighborhood, she managed to get 3 signatures: her own, her husband's, and one from a new resident who didn't understand what he was signing. In response, several neighbors started a counter-petition to thank me for my years of service, which gathered 42 signatures in just 3 days. The final straw for Karen was at the annual neighborhood summer barbecue, an event sponsored by the HOA at our community park. It's typically a wonderful gathering where families bring dishes to share, and we organize games for the children. To my surprise, Karen showed up, having kept a low profile since her failed petition. She brought a store-bought potato salad, placed it on the food table, and didn't speak to anyone. About an hour into the event, I heard a commotion. Karen was in the middle of the park, loudly telling a group of teenagers they had to leave. This is a private HOA event. If you don't reside in this neighborhood, you need to go. One of the fathers walked over and said, "Those are my kids and their friends from school. They are allowed to be here. I don't care who these kids are. This is for residents only." Actually, I called out from the grill, guests are always welcome at HOA neighborhood events. It's in the bylaws under community gathering policies. Karen spun around to face me. You would know all about bylaws, wouldn't you? The entire barbecue fell silent, the awkwardness was palpable. Well, I would, yes. It's part of my job as president. Your so-called job. Everyone here knows you've been harassing me for months. One of my neighbors, an elderly woman who had lived in the neighborhood longer than anyone else, stood up. Honey, the only one who has been harassing people is you. You told me my rose bushes were too tall. They are roses. They grow. Her husband stayed for another hour, apologizing to various people. He seemed like a genuinely good person stuck in a difficult situation, and I honestly felt sorry for him. About 2 weeks later, a "for sale" sign appeared in front of Karen's house. It took a few months for their house to sell. During that period, Karen rarely left her home, except to hurry from her door to her car, avoiding eye contact with everyone. When the new owners, a young couple with a baby, moved in, they were friendly and normal. I made sure to give them a proper welcome. We heard about the previous owner, their husband said with a laugh. The realtor warned us it might take a while for the neighborhood to warm up to us. Well, you're not her, I replied. You'll be fine. And they fit into the neighborhood seamlessly. The best part is that after she moved, I called a board meeting, and we voted to become even more lenient with minor violations moving forward. Their whole experience served as a reminder of why we had maintained such a relaxed HOA for so many years. We revised our enforcement procedures to concentrate only on serious issues and to avoid bothering people with trivial matters. Karen wanted rules, and she got them, all of them, exactly as written. Comment number 1, NTA. She posed as a board member to bully her neighbors, insulted you to your face, and cost you $250 by having your legally parked car towed. You didn't even resort to making up fake rules like she did. You simply enforced the actual contract she signed when she purchased the house. Malicious compliance is truly the only language people like Karen understand. The fact that she tried to petition for your removal and only got 3 signatures, one of which was her own, is hilarious. And by the way, what do you all think about this story? Do you believe the original poster was being an a-hole, or is he one of the few good HOA presidents out there? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Comment number 2, YTA. I understand she initiated it, but you essentially admitted to corruption. You stated that the HOA is typically laid back and that you usually let things like paint colors slide. However, the moment your ego was bruised when she called you a nobody and had your car towed, you weaponized your position to target a specific resident. You meticulously went through their bylaws just to hurt her. She's awful, but an HOA president who selectively enforces rules based on a personal vendetta is precisely why everyone despises HOAs. Comment 3, everyone sucks here. She sounds unhinged for lying about being on the board and towing a car from a public street just to assert dominance. She certainly needed a reality check. But you completely abused your power. You admitted to ignoring rules for everyone else, like purple doors, yet you decided to hit her with $300 a month in fines simply because you were angry. You fought fire with fire, but in doing so, you proved you could be the petty tyrant she accused you of being. Our next story is a fantastic tale of malicious compliance titled, Business Casual? Yes. I am a male who recently transitioned from working in an inpatient setting to an outpatient clinic. For context, my usual attire consisted of scrubs or joggers with athletic shirts, loose, comfortable, and ideal for the job. They are easy to clean, and no one ever raised an issue. During my interview, I admit I failed to clarify the dress code. Since the position was within the same organization and my job title didn't change, I assumed my workwear would also remain the same. Consequently, when I began at the clinic, I continued with my established wardrobe. 2 weeks in, my manager informed me that I needed to adhere to their business casual dress code because the clinic is a patient-facing environment that requires a more professional look. She specifically mentioned that my gym clothes were not appropriate. I politely pointed out the hands-on nature of my clinical duties, injections, wound care, patient assistance, which seemed at odds with wearing dress clothes, but she did not share my perspective. For the record, I despise business casual. I previously worked in finance and swore I would never return to that corporate lifestyle. I went out and bought chinos and button-up shirts. I even purchased the pants a size larger because I know chinos have a different fit. However, I am a larger man, I lift weights and run regularly, and baggy athletic pants or scrubs do a great job of concealing one's physique. Chinos, even a size up, do not. My assets, both front and back, were prominently displayed. On day 1, I received a double take from the front desk staff. On day 2, a co-worker remarked that my pants were working overtime. By the third day, I had heard at least 4 different comments, some in jest, others just awkward observations. I wouldn't classify it as harassment, but it was clear that my attire had become a subject of discussion. My supervisor remained professional, but I could tell she was aware of the chatter. A week later, she approached me and mentioned that the clinic was reconsidering the dress code for clinical roles. She asked if I would prefer to return to wearing scrubs for comfort and practicality. I smiled and replied that I was simply following the business casual policy she had requested, but I would be happy to switch back if that was her wish. By the end of that day, an email was sent out announcing that scrubs were now approved for all clinical staff. I am back in my joggers, and the problem is solved. The next one is a petty revenge story titled, I ate a bag of rich man's nuts so my boss would stop coming into my office and eating them. It's their holiday season, so the company I work for receives numerous gift baskets from clients and vendors. I'm in a department that, due to the nature of our work, seldom gets gifts unless another department shares with us. Fortunately, someone did share a couple of baskets filled with nuts, candies, crackers, and other treats. The VP has been visiting our office almost daily to pick through our gift baskets. He doesn't do this with any other department, and I've seen him receive a couple of baskets himself that he never shared. We had an unopened basket, which he opened, selected the most expensive item, a bag of pistachios, tore into it, and took some. He then remarked, I love the rich man's nut. Famous last words. This man earns 5 times my salary. When the time came for him to advocate for raises for our department, he did not. And now he's coming into our office, taking our gifts, and eating our rich man's nuts. This was unacceptable. I decided I would eat every single pistachio. I'm not particularly fond of pistachios or nuts in general, but I refused to let him come in and take my rich man's nut. I was going to eat them all myself and savor every last moment. So far, I have consumed 4 sleeves of nuts. The basket is now empty. My stomach doesn't feel great, but my pride is intact, knowing that I am full of rich man's nut while he can't have any more. And with that, thank you for watching.